Okay, so let's go through homework for sections 4 and 5 here. Again, there's a ton here, so we'll just pick a few. And the idea is always, you start from the outside and you just keep going until you run out of functions. So for A, y prime would be, well, what the outermost function is something to the 10th, right? So it's a generalized power rule. So it's 10, 1 minus x squared to the 9. It's just an awful 9 there. 9 times the derivative of what's inside, which is 1 minus x squared. So this ends up being 10, 1 minus x squared to the 9 times minus 2x. And you can combine this and this if you want, but you don't have to. Okay, you can't combine it with this because that's raised to the 9th, of course. Okay. Looking at D, that's the same as taking the derivative of 1 plus 2x plus x cubed to the what power? What's the 4th root? So it's the 1/4. Again, generalized chain rule. So we have a 1/4 times 1 plus 2x plus x cubed to the 1/4 minus 1 is negative 3/4 times the derivative of what's inside. Okay, so you just end up with this times, this is obviously 2 plus 3x squared. Okay. Let's take a look at G. That looks a little more challenging. So the derivative of e to the x cosine x, right, is basically, it's a chain rule, of course, because it's e to a function. So the derivative of the generalized rule here is e to the function. It's always a copy of itself times the derivative of the function. Now be careful here when we do the derivative of the function. What do we have to make sure we take into account? Well, we have to make sure we take into account the product rule, right? Because we have a product. Okay, so you have to do the product rule. So, don't be shy with the brackets and parentheses. Keep everything separate. So I have the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. And so this ends up being e raised to the x cosine x times minus x sine x plus cosine x, all in the brackets or parentheses. Okay, so you can see these things get, they get kind of involved. Let me show you J too, because that one's kind of the ultimate chain rule. It's just one inside another inside another. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll maybe do one of the others. Again, start with the outside and just continue to work your way out. So on the outside, you have the cosine of something. So the derivative of cosine of something is negative sine of the something, which in this case is sine tan pi x to the 1/2 times the derivative of that stuff, sine tan pi x to the 1/2. Okay, that's the first step. So you have the cosine of something, the derivative is negative sine something times derivative of something. Now I have to do this. So again, I would recommend strongly you only do one step at a time here, otherwise it kind of gets lost. So this gets repeated, so I have minus sine tan pi x to the 1/2. And then the derivative of, well, what's the next thing? It's some stuff to the 1/2. So that's going to be 1/2 the stuff to the minus 1/2 times the derivative of the stuff, which is sine tan pi x. Okay? Now all of this right here is just going to be dragged along in the next couple of steps. So I'm just going to do this because I'm not rewriting all of that on the on the screen here. It'll get a little messy, but you get the idea. So this gets repeated, right? This gets repeated, and now the derivative of the sine of something is we're going to multiply by the cosine of the something, which is tan pi x, times the derivative of the tan pi x. Okay. So now I have this whole thing still, that's underlined, times a cosine tan pi x times the derivative of tangent pi x, and the derivative of the tangent of something is the secant squared something times the derivative of the something. Okay, so the final answer, let's see if I can do this, is all of this times this times this which is equal to highlight times pi, which is the derivative of pi x. So there's your answer. Everything in the highlighted all multiplied together. So you can see, I mean, the point of this was not to, me to make you miserable, but the point is this is a very good test of your chain rule skills, right? Take one step at a time, start from the outside, and keep going in until you run out of functions. That's the bottom line. Okay. And then if this is not making any sense, I could do a separate write-up for this. Not a problem. And then finally we'll do section 5. We'll do some of the homework. Let me just do, let's just do this one. Okay. So let's take a derivative of, again with respect to x squared y squared plus x sine y is 4. And again, just go left to right. So that's x squared y squared plus the derivative of x sine y is equal to the derivative of 4. So this is obviously 0. And then for each of those other two pieces, I need to do product rules, right? So let's set this up. So I have x squared times the derivative of y squared plus y squared times the derivative of x squared. That's the first piece. And then let me see if I can squeeze this in here. The second piece plus x derivative sine y plus sine y derivative x equals 0. Okay, so now we'll just go left to right here. So I have x squared. The derivative of y squared, that's obviously implicit, so it's 2y y prime plus y squared times the derivative of x squared, that's not implicit, so that's just 2x, plus x, the derivative of sine y, that is implicit because it's y, so it's cosine y y prime, okay, plus sine y times 1 is equal to 0. So the rest is algebra. Okay, so this and this go on one side of the equation, and then the other two items go on the other side. You factor out the y prime and divide. Okay. Again, I think this is just a function of practice. Again, let's take a look at A maybe. So that's the same as finding the derivative of arctan of x to the 1/2. So really it's a power rule, generalized power rule, chain rule. So we get 1/2 arctan of x to the minus 1/2 times the derivative of tan inverse of x, right? So it equals 1/2 arctan to the minus 1/2, and then the derivative of this, remember, is 1 over 1 plus x squared. But you can combine with the 1/2 out front. I don't really care if you want to. Okay. I mean, the rest of these are, so again, here's a product rule, here's a product rule, here's another product rule. We did that one. Product, right? So not sine, it's sine xy, so it's cosine xy times the derivative of xy, which would be a product. Maybe we should do that one, actually. Let me clean out this top, and then we'll do that. We'll do this one, which is f. So it will be the derivative of e to the y cosine x is equal to derivative of 1, which is obviously 0, plus the derivative of sine xy. Okay, so again, we'll set up the first one here on the left-hand side as a product rule. So I have e to the y times d dx cosine x. That's just gross. Plus cosine x times derivative of e to the y is equal to 0, plus the derivative of the sine of something is cosine xy times the derivative of xy. Okay, so I have e to the y. Derivative of cosine x is sine x, plus cosine x times the derivative of e to the y is e to the y times y prime, because it's implicit. Okay, is equal to, I don't need the 0 anymore, cosine xy times the derivative of xy, which is x times the derivative of y, which is y prime, plus y times the derivative of x, which is 1. Okay, so that was a product rule for the derivative of xy as well. Finally, I have to distribute this because one of these has a y prime and the other one doesn't. So it's e to the y sine x plus cosine x e to the y y prime is equal to cosine xy times xy prime plus cosine xy times y. So this and this will go on one side. And you'll factor out the y prime, and then the other two will go on the other side. So, I think that's enough help for the homework. Again, if we need more help, I'm still going to be available that Sunday and Monday, I think it was.